All right, everyone, welcome to my channel. I am so excited to be here with Rey Hernandez. As I've gotten in and had my experience, those of you that follow me and subscribe to my channel and listen to my podcast know I've had a substantial amount of experiences in consciousness with ETs and things of that nature. And we have here with us today Rey Hernandez, which really is, he's a pioneer in the field of consciousness and bringing this data forward from an analytical perspective. Rey's the executive director of the CCRI, the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute, one of the co-founders of the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, an academic research institute that completed a 5-year comprehensive research study on UFO contact experiencers. Co-authored this 820-pound book right here called Beyond UFOs, The Science of Consciousness and Contact with Non-Human Intelligence. And there is an upcoming book, right, Rey, called The Greater Reality, The New Paradigm of Non-Local Consciousness, the Paranormal and Contact Modalities, which I'm excited to get my hands on when that's released. And that's upcoming in October, right?
October 1st.
October 1st. Beautiful. I came across your book in early 2019. I actually looked back on Amazon last week to see when I had purchased it. And I was blown away by what I was reading in it because I had had experiences prior to that with energetic beings. I've had beings come into me and speak with me, and I still do to this day. I've got ongoing conversations happening. And to go through this book and read some of these other people's, these accounts, it was just mind-blowing because this is something that's not as rare as one would think. It's happening throughout the planet on a larger scale. And the individuals I work with in my coaching are starting to experience an expansion of consciousness, and they're moving into this space of higher frequencies, these higher dimensional spaces, and they're getting into contact with these aspects of themselves, these greater versions of themselves. And it's just, I truly appreciate the work that has gone into the study, the work that you have done, and the amount of information that you were able to bring forward was just incredible. And you being, you're a tax attorney by trade, right?
Yes, I'm a tax attorney. And before April 4th, 2012, no, March the 4th, 2012, I had zero interest nor knowledge of any of these topics.
And then you had an experience, I know, in the book, and I've heard you in other interviews with your wife and your dog, which kind of opened you up to these events, which it really shifts you, doesn't it? Now, by trade, I'm a CPA. I have a tax firm.
Okay.
I also have a web design business, and now I'm into coaching, spiritual and consciousness. But that kind of pivots you and takes you off in a different direction because just the whole nature of reality shifts. Right? I mean, right?
That's funny because I work as an estate tax attorney.
Okay.
So I deal with CPAs and attorneys with LLMs all the time for billionaires and multimillionaires. So that's the boring nature of my work. Okay. And I just can't wait till I retire to do what I really want to do.
Right.
Because this job here, in order to be able to pay my bills, is BS, you know? And it's a fantasy, you know? And, but just for your audience members to know, I have an academic background. I went to Rutgers College, did extremely well. I then went to Cornell University for a master's. I had all straight A's, and I went to University of California, Berkeley for a PhD, again, straight A's. And then I became an attorney. And so when I had this experience in March 4th of 2012, my mindset is an academic mindset. And so I won't go into the details of the experiences, but basically it was a medical healing in our living room by an energy being that totally controlled my consciousness, put me to sleep. My wife disappeared right in front of me. And then when she reappeared, the dog was completely healed. A dog that we were going to be euthanizing later that afternoon. And so, and then after that began like 4 years of nonstop paranormal experiences, including calling down, you know, these huge UAPs at will, and my wife too. And so after I found out that these were UAP related, I then began to go to the internet to research, UAPs. And then when I found out that they were paranormal related, and then became a little bit more complicated. And
Sure.
what I found out through my research was that there was nothing on the internet that talked about, what I was going through, and that even began to explain the complexities of this phenomenon.
Yeah.
And so I had a series of experiences that were orchestrated experiences. People use the term synchronicities, but that's not the appropriate term. This was orchestrated events. I won't go into the details because it'll take forever to explain these things. But I had an out-of-body experience while I was driving my car one day going to work to downtown Miami. And I was taken outside of space-time, brought to a multi-dimensional reality where I was given tons of downloads, both visual and informational downloads of the nature of our reality, about the relationship between consciousness and the contact modalities, which I eventually called it. I coined that term, contact modalities, but it didn't tell me the word contact modalities. It was just, I associated the information that was given to me that
Right.
way. And then within 2 days, I was introduced to Mary Rodwell, Rudy Shields, who is a retired professor of astrophysics from Harvard University, and the late Dr. Edgar Mitchell within 2 days. So these are orchestrated events. And so it was based upon my interactions with these three individuals at the home of Edgar Mitchell that this organization was founded, FREE. And it was based upon this mandate that I was given to research this phenomenon and to tell humanity about this. And Edgar was the one that was encouraging me to form an organization to study this and to research this, and that he was going to be my scientific advisor with Dr. Rudy Shields. And for quite a long time, I had no idea what they were talking about. I thought they were crazy. And then all of a sudden, on a Saturday morning, I woke up with the whole methodology of what we needed to do, which is that free book. And it usually occurred to me, it occurs on Saturday mornings when I wake up.
Yeah.
It's like everything is there, all, the
Right.
chapters,
It just unpacks,
authors.
right?
Yeah, it's all there. And then I just typed it all up and I wrote it up, which is basically the methodology for this book. And then sent it to Edgar Mitchell, to Rudy Shields, and to Mary Rodwell. They all said, unbelievable, this is great, go with it. And then within a couple of weeks, we had tons of academic professors and a who's who of researchers in the UFO field. And let me just give your audience members a basic understanding of why that research was done. Let me explain the research. What that research was the world's first comprehensive statistical academic research study on UFO contact experiencers. Okay. And the reason why we did that was because the download that I had received was that all of what we're calling the paranormal contact modalities, that all of these experiences, which are all the different ways that humans are piercing the veil and having contact with non-human intelligence, i.e. near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, UFO contact, remote viewing, contact via ghosts and spirits, hallucinogenic contact, you name it, all what we consider the paranormal, even the whole psi phenomenon, precognition, etc. That all of this needs to be studied as one.
Correct. Yes.
Not as separate and distinct phenomena. And the reason is because it's all consciousness based. Okay. All of them involve a manipulation of space-time, all of them. And because of that, these are can be perceived as multidimensional in nature.
Right.
Okay? And so so that was basically the download that I was given, and I was shown it visually. I was inside a big gigantic wheel. I won't go into the details of that. And so the reason why we did the UFO study, the world's first comprehensive academic research study, statistical research study on UFO contact experiences, is that it's never been done before. Okay. What
Right.
you literally had was your story, my story,
Mhm.
this other guy's story. And then you had all these compilations by hypnotic regressionists, many of them asking leading questions. And all of a sudden, they've been going to these UFO conference for 35 years saying these are all demonic, these are all negative experiences,
Right.
and that they've never met an experiencer with a positive experience. It's basically ufology, materialist ufology, has been a cesspool of misinformation and disinformation. So we really didn't know what the hell was going on. Now, a lot of the researchers in our group, very well-known people like Kathleen Martin, Barbara Lamb, Dr. Leo Sprinkle, Mary Rodwell, Brad Steiger, for example, worked with us. All of these people have been working with experiencers, most of them for at least 30 years. In Leo Sprinkle's case, it was like since the early 1960s. Mm-hmm. So they knew what was happening at the experiencer level, but they didn't have the data, to back them up.
Sure.
Now, what we did is we developed 3 comprehensive surveys. And then after that, we did structured interviews. We began it, we never finished it. But the surveys, 2 of them were quantitative in nature. It was 600 questions. And then the third instrument was a qualitative instrument. It was written responses to 70 open-ended questions, where we received over 10,000 pages of writings of their stories, people's stories, to these 70 open-ended questions. And for the quantitative surveys, we received responses from over 4,200 experiencers from over 100 countries, actually 125, more than 125 countries. So this was huge numbers, and much of our data totally contradicts what's circulating in ufology. Totally contradicts.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The information I've received that I've gotten in my experiences and my contact, and I have contact a lot, and it's more of a unique type of thing. It's a telepathic type of connection. I see visual images. I have communication, almost like phone calls. It's really, really acute. Okay. And the information that I've gotten and received is just as you're saying, it's all consciousness based, and what you're seeing and what you're reading about in the news and in the newspaper, things like that. It's just a different, it's really taking you down a wrong path as to what this is all about. What's driving this? It's a materialist path. Exactly. It's a lower dimensional type of thing. Yeah. And just the expansiveness of it is just amazing. But the way that this book has been compiled, and statistical data, and seeing the relationships between all these experiencers and things like that is just incredible. And that's the first of its kind. It's the first I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, it's never been done before.
Yeah.
And let me just go over very, very quickly before we transition to the other book. Again, the reason why this was done was because it was never done before. Okay. And so for me, as an experiencer, wanting to understand the nature of my experiences, I wasn't getting any answers. Okay. Now, just to correct that last statement, there are no answers to the
or no experts, right? Really, no experts,
because it's so complicated. We're just starting to understand what questions to ask, let alone getting answers. Okay, but at least we have a better understanding of the phenomenon. But what we discovered was that there were 4 major findings. If someone was, we had numerous findings, research findings. But if you were to say, okay, Ray, give me your top 4. I don't want to know about the other 20 or 30, findings that you got. Give me your top 4. And I would say is as follows. Okay. Number 1, we wanted to understand whether these experiences were positive, negative, or neutral. Because if you were to read the books or the lectures of David Jacobs or Bud Hopkins, or even the noted authority on experiencers who just published a book titled The Alien Agenda, Richard, whatever his name is, Dolan, okay,
Richard,
who claims to know the alien agenda. He just wrote a book about it.
Okay.
And he sold 100 times more copies than we sold in our book.
Mm-hmm.
And so for all of these people, their perspective is that all of these experiences are negative. Okay. They're negative.
Mm-hmm.
They've never met anyone that's had a positive experience.
Mm.
Well, I've spoken with tons of experiencers that are, some of them quite old. And what they've said is that, look, I went to David Jacobs. They refused to listen to me once they heard that my experiences were positive.
Mm. Okay.
They didn't want to deal with them because it didn't fit their paradigm.
It doesn't fit the fear, right? The fear and the separation
the fear
piece.
mongering.
Exactly.
Correct. The fear mongering.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what we discovered in our research study was just the opposite. That the overwhelming majority of these experiences over the long term, not initially, but over the long term, were highly positive and transformative experiences.
Absolutely.
So then you get what's been circulating in the field of ufology, and these so-called experts and these big names in ufology, is the total opposite. So that's been the mindset. That's been the established paradigm in this field. Okay.
Sure. And Hollywood doesn't help
from a paradigm
either,
where,
right? Yeah.
No, correct. Hollywood, and also
Hollywood doesn't.
What I was going to say is, for years, the field of ufology would not even accept the aspect of the experiencer. It was all straight nuts and bolts type of stuff. Okay. And so once they started, accepting the experiencer aspect of it, it was, the initial Whitley Strieber, Bud Hopkins, and David Jacobs, these people that it was all negative. Okay. Which still continues to this day with Richard Dolan's, book, The Alien Agenda, which is all based upon, the anecdotal studies of limited individuals over the last 40 years, but it's not based upon any data or anything done.
No, it's a polarity type of a view. We've got good and we have bad, and it's we're on one side. That means they must be on the other side because they're unfamiliar to us. We don't know what they are.
Correct. So let me address that question. We want to find out whether these experiences were positive, negative, or neutral. We asked that question in more than 25 different ways. Okay, we asked more than 25 questions because depending how you phrase a question, you'll get a different response. Okay?
Sure.
And we also had various open-ended questions related to that topic. Okay. Well, what we discovered was that, first of all, in terms of the topic of abductions, the field of ufology has associated for years these experiences mainly with abductions. Okay. If you've had contact, you've been abducted, Well, what we discovered was that 2/3 of the people, 66% of these individuals, never had an abduction. Okay. So that takes care of that whole, logic out the window that everything is all abduction based. Now, we then had specific questions for the abduction folks, people that have had an abductions. We asked them, how would you describe yourself? And we had like 5 categories of questions. Okay. Well, 70% of these people, not initially, but now call themselves contactees instead of abductees.
Okay.
70%. And then an additional almost 9% stated that, yes, I was abducted, but they treated me in a humane way. They asked for my permission and I was treated very well. So that's, now it's 80% of the people that have had an abduction. Okay. Now, overall, when you look at both the abductees and the non-abductees group, and you look at how they rank their experiences. Initially, 37% viewed their experiences as negative, But yet, that was in the beginning, Now you ask them, for some of these people, 20, 30, 40 years later, how would you describe their experiences? That number went all the way down to 4% negative.
It's negative, yeah.
That's it, just 4%.
Yeah.
Why? Because what we discovered was that the vast majority of these individuals had numerous contact experiences. If you only had one, the tendency was you still have that shock, of that initial experience. So you're still frightened by it, if you had nothing else, But what we discovered, for example, 40% of these people had 20 or more contact experiences. Out of that group, the vast majority were overwhelmingly positive.
Yeah.
Like 99% of that group. Why? Because while maybe the first few experiences were very scary, towards the very end, they're like Whitley Strieber. Initially, he was horrified by these experiences when he wrote that book, Communion. Now, Whitley Strieber now is Mr. Love and Light.
Yeah.
Okay. On his latest interviews, he says he prays to God and he gives thanks for these beings, which he considers like modern angels, because they introduced him to spirituality. Okay?
Sure.
They introduced him to the nature of our reality. He's able to talk to his deceased wife. They're giving him spiritual lessons. Okay. And gave him spirituality. So Whitley Strieber is just an example of the person that took our survey. In the beginning, they were horrified by these experiences, mainly because of the physicality aspect of it. But then towards the end, these people are love and light. Okay.
Well, my take on that whole thing is when you first, and I like to use the term, maybe, you know, it's not even a word really, but contactee, maybe a remembree, because we're remembering aspects of ourself. We're remembering the greater cosmos. We're remembering an expanded version of consciousness that we are. And when these beings come in a physical way, we're programmed. We have density within us. We're living in this dense reality, and these fears come up. They're in the way. These fears are in the way, and they're showing us these fears. They're bringing it up, and it's very healing to be in that presence, because as you continue to stay in that presence and work through those fears, you take on more light, you take in more consciousness, and the whole experience shifts, as you're saying. That's a natural progression of the process.
Correct. By nature, humans have in our DNA fear and flight.
Fight or flight, yes.
Or fight.
And that's the first response when something out of the ordinary comes in, and it shows us, you know, this energy comes in and shows us what needs to be released so that we could expand and grow. And these experiences, that's why they transition, you know, and it's not everyone has that fear from the beginning. You know that as you stated.
The vast majority do not. The vast majority
those that
are
do,
actually neutral experiences.
It's that blockage that's in the way. It's that fear response as this DNA gets reawakened, and the consciousness just expands and they take in more light. And it's a remembrance of who we truly are as humans, as souls, right?
Yeah, that's all you have to do is look at the data from our book. And let me just remind all of your readers that I will give away over 450 pages from our book. Chapters 1, chapters 2, the chapter on medical healings. That's more than half of our book.
Okay.
I'll send anyone else a peer-reviewed academic article that we published, and information about our new book. So lots of reading material.
Lots of material. Yeah, there's a lot of reading material here. And it is like with my subscribers, my viewers, my listeners, having these types of experiences is just so nice to go in to see. Because I always tell them, you're not going to have the same experience that I have. You're going to have, you know, it's going to be in a different way. And we need to be able to discover that and find that.
All these experiences are unique to us.
Absolutely.
Rarely do you find an overlap in experiences.
Right.
But what I wanted to finish to tell your audience members is that send me an email to info@experiencer.org. info@experiencer.org, and I'll send you all those materials that I
and I'll put a link to that in the description as well.
And so that was the number one area. Which we asked in numerous ways. We asked, if you could stop your experiences, would you? Well, 91% said no. Okay. We even had we had 12 different categories of beings. Okay. And overwhelmingly, you know, these categories were not fear-based. They were not negative. Okay. All of them. Okay. Even the evil, dreaded reptilians, you know.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And so, what we discovered also, the number one type of being was actually the energy being. Number 2 was the human-looking being. Number 3 was actually the short grays. Okay. Number 4 was the ghost and spirit forms. Okay. Number 5 was the tall grays, and it goes on and on with the different types of physical entities. But there were also tons of communication that were non-physical, like we were talking about, you know, in terms of downloads, hearing voices, having communication with the conscious entity back and forth. I would say a third of the members of our organization, CCRI, that's how they got started in this. These are academic professors now. All of a sudden, they're hearing a voice say, "Don't go down the street. Don't make that left turn. Don't make that left turn." And all of a sudden they don't, and they go straight ahead. All of a sudden, boom, a car comes.
And these are very left-brain people, right? It's
yes,
like, what is this? What's going on?
Left brain.
Yeah.
There's a story, and I could talk about him because he's public now. Sure. He went public when I interviewed him. Okay. And here's Dr. Raul Valverde. He's a professor of statistics and information sciences in Canada.
Okay.
I won't give the university, but it's a major university. He went to a meditation place to do holotropic breathing, okay, which is developed by Stanislav Grof, but that in turn was an ancient Indian tradition of getting into an altered state of consciousness, sure. Right? And all of a sudden, Raul, don't worry about your wife becoming pregnant. Within 2 weeks, she's going to tell you that she's pregnant and it's going to be a girl, and you're going to give her this name. All of a sudden, the man freaked out, Mind you, he's a PhD statistician, a number cruncher.
Sure, guy, right.
He runs out of that place like, what the hell just happened? Am I going crazy? Whatever. So within 2 weeks, his wife, hallelujah, Raul, I'm pregnant, Then several months later, they get a sonogram. It's a girl, And so all of a sudden, they wound up giving her the name of that being, that intelligence told him. So he then goes back to that place, but now he's not scared anymore. Okay. Sure. And he does that deep breathing, getting into this altered state of meditation. All of a sudden, the intelligence starts communicating with him, which is now for 20 years now. He says now it's back and forth.
That's
and
what I've got. Yeah.
At will. He could call it and boom.
That's what I have too.
Back and forth.
At will.
And he says there's tons of teachings about consciousness, the nature of our reality, spirituality. It's but yet these things, as you know, they're not rare, okay? They're literally happening all over the world to different individuals, And
a lot of times they don't recognize it. They don't recognize what's happening. It's just something maybe a little bit off, a little bit strange. It's not normal. It's outside of the normal. And what I help to do is bring people into that and get present with that and get centered and just allow that to be okay. Because when we could do that, we could start to tune into it a little bit more and raise that antenna and get a stronger connection.
That's a good phrasing, raising the antenna.
Exactly.
Because all of us have that antenna, except
that's right.
Some of us don't have it raised.
Or we don't even look at it, right? It's there, the information's coming, but we don't take the time to look because we're too busy. We're working, whatever we're doing. With me, it was a very abrupt awakening where I was just laying out in my backyard and I was popped out of my body. And I had all this information coming in about the universe, about gravity, about non-local consciousness, the life everywhere, ETs, all sorts of stuff just flooded in. And from that point forward, I had this communication. I had 3 energy beings here in my house, Ray, in front of me, speaking to me.
Yeah. Okay, they appeared. Number one category of what people described in our book was the energy being.
I've had other physical ones, different star systems. I've had ones I can't even identify. They're communicating, and I'm realizing that they're really all aspects. We're all the same. They're aspects of us that are coming forward, that are awakening within us. And
it's let me jump ahead of here, way ahead here, and get into some of our deeper topics here. But we'll get back to the 4 major findings. But what I hypothesize, and several members of our organization that are really deep thinkers, is that we're interacting with the mind of God, the universal mind. And so we're having all of these experiences with, not with a diversity of beings.
That's correct.
Beings, because people associate this, they're coming from the Pleiades, they're coming from, this other star system, that all these beings are real beings, that sort of thing. What I suspect is that, yes, there might be a certain subgroup, a small subgroup, that are physically based type of beings. But the vast majority of the experiences that people are having, this is an awakening process.
Absolutely.
Okay? Once you've had a near-death experience, once you've had an out-of-body experience, all of a sudden, the floodgates start happening.
I may be able to shed a little bit of light on exactly what you're saying too, because what I have come to know or come to remember, when we talk about like the Pleiadians and the Arcturians and these different species, we're here in a physical universe. Yeah. We're able to perceive these energies as physical. That's what this universe is constructed for. It's, you know, with the quantum field, the energy, the collapsing of the wave, matter, that kind of thing. We're able to perceive these beings as separate from us, but they're aspects of us. And as we go through this awakening, these start to come out and reflect into this reality so that we could become aware of them. It's all part of the awakening process.
Most definitely.
And as we grow, as we expand our consciousness and take in more of that universal mind, our soul, whatever you want to term it, we start to pull this information in and it actually becomes us. We reintegrate it into our
I know exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
And that's not easy to phrase, to be able to explain.
It is not. And that's what I work.
And yet even more difficult to try to understand. So
that's what I work with people to do, because everybody's looking to have experiences. And what we got to do is we got to learn, we got to come inside and remember who we are, because when we could do that, we start to expand and awaken to the greater truth, the truths that we knew before we came here. This dimension gives us an aspect of amnesia, and we're having these experiences to reawaken to ourselves.
Yeah.
Right.
Let me get back to a continuing of that answer there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What all of these experiences via what we're calling the contact modalities, which are all the different ways that humans are piercing the veil of our reality and having contact with perceived non-human intelligence. All this is just, as you said, an awakening process.
That's right.
And it's an awakening process for each individual. You know, it's not happening, you know, to mankind universally. It's
right.
It's one-on-one. Okay. And what it is to awaken you to the true nature of our reality. That
absolutely.
Indeed, we are eternal spiritual beings.
That's right.
You know, and that we're interacting. I believe that these experiences are projections from the universal mind.
Okay? That's what I'm saying. Absolutely, they are. They're reflections of these aspects of us.
Correct. And again, this, as you said, you know, there's no separation between me and the universal mind, because we are the universal mind.
Yes.
And when we die, our physical body, okay, our consciousness returns back to the universal mind, because we're part of it, okay? And then we have a reincarnation process that we're off on another trip to gather information to return back to the universal mind.
Yeah, I want to mention that to you, but go ahead and finish your point. There's something I have to, about that piece
I mean,
too.
We could go on for hours here.
Sure.
But basically, let me just go back to the more mundane aspects of our research study. Okay? So number one is that these experiences were overwhelmingly positive, not necessarily in the beginning, but towards the end when these individuals were taking our survey. And this is not 200 people that David Jacobs has regressed here. Okay. We're talking about 4,200 people. Okay. That are saying the same thing.
That's a good sample. Yeah.
A huge sample. And then the other major finding is that while materialists view let's take, for example, ufology. The overwhelming majority of people that go to these ufology conferences, actually that speak at these UFO conferences, are materialists.
Yes.
Okay? You name the name, most of these people are materialists. The people that go to these conferences, many of them are experiencers. They want to find answers. They want to find solutions. What the hell is happening to me? So there's a disconnect between what is being presented and the people that go to these conferences. I'm not saying all of them, but I'm saying a big majority of these.
It's people. That separation of something's happening to us instead of something is happening from within us.
Correct.
Different. Yeah.
Now, what we determined by our research study was that while these people might have seen a UFO and they might have physically seen a being, a perceived being, okay, the overwhelming majority of the experiences are quote unquote paranormal in nature. For example, 80% had out-of-body experiences, like you had.
Yes.
Okay. 66% of these people saw ghosts and spirits. 37% of these people had near-death experiences. Another 2/3 had physically, not through a photo, physically seen orbs, different colored orbs.
Okay, sure.
Okay. In terms of being brought to another reality, like a matrix reality, a multidimensional reality.
Yeah, I've had that too.
Which happened to me. Okay. Well, 50% of these people, 50%, half the people were brought to another multidimensional reality, where most of the time, you know, they receive different types of lessons.
Yes.
In terms of the cosmology, the nature of our reality, spirituality, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. And I mean, you name the paranormal or the psi phenomenon, precognition, you name it, all of these people have had all of the paranormal aspects. And we asked goodness, like more than 50 questions are paranormal related in there. And so what we were able to determine was that, medical healings. 50% of these people stated that they or a member of their family has had a miraculous medical healing from UFO-related non-human intelligence. Again, huge numbers. Just like our dog was totally healed, from this energy being. And we knew it was UFO-related because my wife began to pray at night, and these huge UFOs would appear.
They'd appear, sure.
And then I've only done it maybe like 4 times, and 3 times these huge UFOs would appear. Okay, one time was this little tiny thing out in the sky, that I thought was a satellite. Okay, but I mean, a lot of people do this. It's called human-initiated contact experiences.
Correct. Yes.
Otherwise known as CE5. But I prefer the term HICE, human-initiated contact.
I'll sit out on my deck and I'll see them. They'll come. I'll see them all the time.
So these are very common experiences, especially for major experiences, not for the Joe Schmo that's out in the street, but if you've had very profound experiences, then the tendency, the likelihood is that you're going to be seeing shadow beings, you're going to be seeing deceased people, you're going to be having out-of-body experiences, et cetera, et cetera. So that's why we were able to determine statistically with actual data that the overwhelming percentage of the experiences of these individuals were primarily paranormal in nature, not physicalist experiences.
And they've overlapped. They've had different types of experience, like deceased. Like I've had, the night my dad died, I was speaking to him, and my mom, I was speaking to her after she had passed. Those types of things, they overlap. And, it's a testament to the expansion of the consciousness of reintegrating with that field.
Correct. It's all consciousness based. But now the people within that research near-death experiences, they know this because by definition, you're going to another dimension. You're having contact with non-human intelligence. You're having life reviews and things. So by definition, those people do not need to be trained to move away from materialism. Same thing with out-of-body experiences, astral travelers. By definition, you're already into another realm. You're talking with different types of intelligence. You're getting all this information downloaded. Remote viewing, the same thing. By definition, your consciousness gets out of your body and you're seeing a different scenario. Okay. Now, the field associated with ufology is still primarily stuck in that muck.
It's the physical,
the physical piece. Correct, the physical piece. So that's number 2. That these were primarily paranormal, consciousness-based experiences.
Okay.
Now, number 3, what we determined was that we wanted to find out how these people changed. How were they before, and how are they now? And we asked like 60 different questions in terms of their transformation of their worldview. Okay. And what we discovered was that depending on the question, because we had like 70 questions, between 75% to 85% of these individuals totally transformed for the positive. Let me give you examples. Okay, materialism. Okay, money. Okay, material things. Are they important to you? Okay. Again, it was like 80% of the.
It's gone down, right? Not as important.
Gone down.
Right.
Correct. Okay. Spirituality. Okay. All of a sudden, shoots up super high. Okay. Religion, organized religion, shoots down. Okay. Your fear of death, all of a sudden, shoots down. Right. You don't fear death.
Yep.
You becoming more loving to your fellow human being, shoots up. Okay, your purpose in life. You finally have a purpose in life. Whoop, So it's like I could go on question. We have it all
consistent.
And they're all consistent. So what's happening is that these contact experiences are totally transforming the individual into someone that you would want your parents to be, your spouse to be, your siblings, your own children. It's the way that you would want humanity to be.
Sure.
If humanity behaves the way how these people change, there wouldn't be any wars. There wouldn't be starvation. There wouldn't be all these universal killings.
No greed. None of that. Right.
No capitalist exploitation. You'd be out helping out your fellow human being, et cetera, et cetera. And so from my perspective is let all these ETs do this to everybody. in the
Well,
world.
what they're, what's happening is we're taking this divine energy, of who we truly are, and we're bringing it here. And these people are embodying it. And they're becoming that. And what the ETs, this is, I look at it like this.
I use the word ETs in the form of non-human intelligence.
I got it. Yeah.
But that's the common term that's used in
absolutely
ufology. ETs and aliens, but I prefer non-human intelligence.
Non-human.
Because we don't really know what the hell this is.
They're here in the atmosphere. It's almost like we're living in a fog. Like there's a fog. There's a reality beyond the fog we can't see, but it's there. And they're coming in and they're burning off the fog. They're coming in one at a time.
I've never heard that. I like that.
They're exposing this greater aspect of the individual.
Yeah.
Okay. They're seeing this greater reality, and it's lifting the fog. And when you lift the fog, the light could come in, more light comes in.
Yeah.
And we're grounding it. And that's exactly what's happening. And the more and more people this happens to, and everyone that has that light and walks around and embodies that affects everyone else around them. How can you?
That's correct. That's correct.
And that's correct. And it expands that way. It's just a beautiful thing.
Let me touch upon that, and I won't get to the fourth one yet, okay? Because we're getting into some very interesting topics.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
One interesting component is that we discovered in our research study, just like NDEs and OBEs, for example, when you have a near-death experience, the entity that people associate as God, the being that gives them a life review, et cetera, when they're told that they need to return, okay, the most important concept that they are told, okay, is that you only need one thing when you return. Not money, not a particular religion, et cetera, et cetera. You just need one thing. You need to learn how to love.
How to love, yep. That's it.
You need to learn how to love.
That's that source energy.
And that came across with our research study. Clearly, spirituality and love.
That's what it's all about. Reconnecting with that energy.
Hold on a second.
That's okay. Oh, go ahead. No problem.
And yes, and so the major finding of NDE contact experiences by Raymond Moody, Dr. Jeffrey Long, Dr. Bruce Grayson. All of a sudden, I'm tearing in my eyes here, maybe because I got the light on. Dr. Kenneth Ring, all of the major NDE researchers. Sure. That's what they say. That's what their data shows. Yeah. Well, same thing with these individuals, that spirituality is extremely important and the ability to love. But yet, the ability to love is the most difficult concept to master. Okay. And my own personal experience is that hold on a second. That just let me take the video off for a second. Maybe just I could talk.
Oh, no problem. No problem.
That I, over a period of time, I was getting information, from non-human intelligence.
Okay. And
they had told me about the concept of love and its relationship with our universal creator.
Yes.
And what I was told was that the nature of our reality is dualistic. It's polarities.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. And that in order to, and they explained to me in detail the physics of entropy. Okay. How it works, the physics of entropy. And what I was told was that what we're here to do is to introduce love. And by introducing love, we reduce entropy. Okay. Chaos in our reality.
Right.
And I heard this man, Tom Campbell, talk exactly about that. Exactly. And I said, this guy got his information via his OBEs.
Well, I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you when you're done what I got about that same subject.
Okay. And so he said verbatim, what I was told. And so, and he also had been the guinea pig for Robert Monroe when he was doing all of his
CIA work. Yeah.
Robert Monroe
with the astral
projection. Yes,
yeah, but the CIA did a report on him. I remember reading about his methods, the Monroe Institute, right?
Yeah, with the Monroe Institute. Yeah, and in his books, he had used the term TC, Dr. TC, and that was Tom Campbell.
That was him. Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
so I know he's a major astral traveler.
Yeah.
And a lot of his lectures, he talks about that. But when he gave that lecture, it was like verbatim what I was given.
Yeah.
You know? So can you tell me now?
I've received too information about that, because I've had this issue with people talking about we need to love unconditionally. Now, there's a love here in this frequency, in this dimension that we live in, that's very different from the love that we are pulling down from the higher, from the multidimensional space, from the universal consciousness. Everything that we do here when we look at love is a 3D perspective. There's a condition on everything. How can you love something without knowing it's there? It's conditional. If it's not there, you can't love it. So the information I received was that it is to embody the love within yourself and become that love. Okay. And just be, because that's who we are as true creators. That's our source energy, is this unconditional love, but we can't really express it or see it here, because if I love my spouse, it's conditional. My spouse, right? I can't not love my spouse I can't love my spouse if she's not there. You see what I'm saying? There's a condition to it. So there's a confusion, I think, as to what we're terming, or they term in the spiritual community, unconditional love. It's about being and embodying and just being this pure love that we are, these high frequencies, to bring them in and radiate that.
Yeah,
and I live that.
To me, is once you listen to near-death experiencers, and that topic is always mentioned, you know, for the people that have crossed that veil and gone to that other reality. And all of them really struggle with beginning to define what happened to them in terms of love. You know, they say it's like, if you could imagine the love that you have of your mother,
you can't think about it.
Multiply that by 1 billion.
That's right. You can't conceive of it here in this frequency, really. You can't grasp the grandness of it.
Correct. So everyone has difficulty trying to express that. But what I, again, it's my hypothesis, and that's based upon information that I was given, is that we're here reincarnated in this physical body to learn how to love. Okay. And then we will go back and we have a life review. We're shown all aspects of our life in terms of that. Were we able to provide love to a fellow human being? And we're shown aspects of how we treat people
love,
horribly.
or be love, represent love.
Yeah. And so we're showing our life in the context of that. So anyway, we jumped into that super interesting topic.
It's an interesting topic, to talk about within this physical reality. That's for sure.
Correct.
It's hard to grasp.
So let me go into the last finding.
Okay.
So the findings so far, the 4 major findings, is that these experiences, well, in the beginning, for many, were negative. Towards the end, when people were actually taking the survey, it was only 4% viewed their experiences as negative. Okay. Number 2, these experiences were primarily paranormal. And not physical experiences. Number 3, these experiences resulted in a total positive transformation of the experiencer. Okay. And then number 4 is that these experiences involve a manipulation of space-time, and that in turn leads to hypotheses that this is a multi-dimensional experience. And so, and that's where it ties in to all of the other contact modalities, because all of the other contact modalities involves a manipulation of space-time, and in turn might be multi-dimensional in nature. And that's why it needs to be studied as one integrated phenomenon instead of separate. So those are the 4 major research findings from that book. And again, this is a book on UFO contact experiencers. These are individuals that physically seen a UFO and have had some type of contact via a non-human intelligence.
And we're expanding it and bringing in consciousness and how it all really ties together. It's all the same phenomenon. Different experiences.
So that mission accomplished with that first book. It took us 5 years to do that. And we had a team of many PhD academics and researchers in the UFO field. Okay. And so now that we have that data, now we're able to compare it to near-death experiences, out-of-body experiences, remote viewers, people that have seen ghosts and spirits, et cetera, because now we got data, okay? Now what we're trying to do with this new organization, and we had to give it a new name because the previous organization, the Dr. Edgar Mitchell Free Foundation, was being branded as a ufology organization, okay? And we were never a ufology organization, but every time you mention that name, oh, it's this new UFO group that's talking about consciousness.
Okay.
I said, no, we were never a UFO group. We were a consciousness group, okay? Trying to understand the UFO related aspects of consciousness. And so we changed it. So we changed the name to the Consciousness and Contact Research Institute. The acronyms are CCRI. And that's made up of more than 20 PhD academics and 5 medical doctors and a few lay investigators, non-academic investigators. And what we're trying to understand is not just UFOs anymore, but we're trying to understand the relationship between consciousness and all of the contact modalities, how they interrelated. When did these through the experiencers? Okay, the focus is on the experiencer.
Sure.
So we're trying to understand, when did these experiences start? Okay, was it at a young age? Did one experience bleed out to another? For some people, it starts with an out-of-body experiences. With some people, it starts with a near-death experience. All of a sudden, they're seeing deceased people all the time. They're having precognition skills. With some people, is when they were young, they had a physical being that appeared to them in their bed. Like, for example, my wife, she told me about a year ago that she used to play with little people. And I said, what? You never told me. We've been married for 28 years. You never told me that before. Well, I just remembered it, And then I said, were they like the ones with the big heads and the wraparound eyes? She said, no, they were little people. And I said, were they like, like dwarfs or fairies? She says, no, they were people like you and I, but they were just small.
Just little, okay.
And I said, well, was this 1 or 2 experiences? She said, no, throughout my whole youth. I said, well, what range? She said, as soon as I can remember, whatever, like 2 or 3 years old, all the way until she was like 11 years old, So this is many, many years. I said, were you frightened by them? She said, no, they were my friends. I used to play with them. Okay. So this wasn't just like when she was like until 7 years old or something like that. This is throughout whatever, 3rd, 4th grade or something like that.
Sure.
When you're conscious about these things, it's not like a little kid with their child imagination. This is now, a boy or a girl, and lo and behold, for example, we have a Facebook site for experiencers, and this man, Preston Dennett, you need to interview him. An unbelievable researcher. He's someone that was stimulated into all of this by seeing the ghost or deceased physicality of his deceased mother right in front of him. Then after that, the man all of a sudden began interested in UFOs. He began seeing UFOs. He saw other deceased people. All of a sudden, he started having out-of-body experiences, and he's had tons of experience. So I asked him, well, what's your number one type of experience? He goes, oh, beyond a doubt, out-of-body experiences. Astral traveling. And I was able to determine he's one of the world's major astral travelers, but nobody knows about it because he never talks about publicly.
He doesn't talk about it.
Also, he's an accountant. Okay.
Interesting. Okay.
And he's published like about
he's left brain people, right?
25 books on these topics. Okay. And so with Preston Dennett, what triggered him was after the funeral of his mother, he saw his deceased mother. And that opened up the whole floodgates. But he made a post on our Facebook site. Anyone is interested, just type in on Facebook the contact modalities. Okay. And it'll bring you to the site, contact modalities. And so he put there a story of a woman that had used to play with little people when she was young, right? All of it. And then I posted, my wife's experience. All of a sudden we had like 14 or 15 different people. Wow. Posting all of the experiences with little people. Okay. Another woman was twinkling stars that would come out of the closet, when she was young. And it wasn't for 1 or 2 years. It was like throughout all her childhood because she was very, very scared. She had a traumatic childhood and they would be singing to her, And so, you heard all these stories and you realize This is one little tiny Facebook site. Yeah, like 14 or 15 people telling about their own personal experiences.
How many are really out there, right? Yeah.
Yeah, are out there. You know, that these are things that you don't talk about, you know, because they'll instantaneously, you can have an out-of-body experience. You can talk about, you know, near-death experiences. You can talk about seeing a ghost or a spirit, because these are openly talked about now, right? But
sure.
Playing with little people in your bedroom for like 10 years of your childhood. Now you're talking about someone that's, you know, mentally unhinged, you know, so people don't talk about these things. So all of these concepts, what we were able to determine through our research study, these are normal experiences. But what it is people don't talk about it, Mark. Yeah. I'm sure you know that.
Okay. I had some too when I was young. And just 3 or 4 years ago, I learned what they were about. You know, they were not very nice experiences for me. It wasn't an abduction experience, anything like that. I just had visitations. And because of these fears that I had, it projected out as a scary type of scenario.
Yeah.
And it would come around repeatedly, probably up till I was probably 10, 11, 12 years old, and reconnected with that same energy 3 or 4 years ago, and realized what had happened with that whole thing. So it's just all tied together. And once you have you know, like I had this event, this out of body experience, and then I started having these visitations and things. And these are just, you know, we're activating ourselves, our DNA is coming online, this energy is coming in and triggering things. It's just the whole world open, like the floodgates, like you said, open up, and the whole world changes. It just goes kaboom like this.
Yeah.
And reality is never the same.
Correct. That's what happened with me. You know, it's like you can never go back to your previous life.
I had a vision of a wheel, and I know you did too. They gave you in one of your experiences received a vision of a wheel. I remember reading with the modalities, right?
I was inside the wheel.
Inside the wheel.
When I had that out of body experience.
Yeah.
The wheel was slowly spinning around, and then each
the spoke
was like a video
okay.
of a different contact modality. So I would look at it, I instantaneously knew what it was, you know. Then it would go to the next one, and I would be a video, and then I knew what it was. Go to the next one. It was like that.
Because I had a vision too. I was given information. I was shown a wheel. Now, it wasn't contact modalities, but it was a dimensional thing where I was shown that where we are in this physical universe, we're living on the rim of the wheel. Okay. And it's space-time. And we move in order to get from moment to moment to moment, we move around the rim of the wheel. We have to travel the rim. Now, when we awaken and we expand our consciousness, essentially what we do is we move from the rim up the spokes to the hub. And once you're at the hub of the wheel, you have the perspective, the ability to look down each spoke at different points in space-time.
Yeah, those are the same words that I used when I wrote up my experience.
Yeah.
I used the term hub, the same thing that you used.
And it was the same. And when I read that, when I got the book, I was blown away by that, because it wasn't about the modalities.
Could you open up your book and open up the last page of the book, and you show it to the audience members?
Is that the picture of the wheel?
The last page of the book.
Yeah, there it is right there, right?
Yeah, show it right there.
This one. So I get your book.
Talk, because I didn't show on the screen. I'll be quiet.
Okay. Oh, it did. Oh, I've got you in gallery mode. So the wheel here. So I get this vision, and it's explained to me that the dimension we live in is the rim. And when we awaken, we travel up the spokes to the hub. And when we're in the hub, we're connected with our multidimensional aspect, and we could see down each spoke of the wheel to a different point in space and time. So if you want to call it different realities, different planets, different lifetimes, whatever it may be, when you can expand your consciousness up to the point, the frequency of that hub, then it opens up and you're able to see these different incarnations and different aspects of your multidimensionalness. And it came in a wheel. And when I got your book in March of 2019 and saw that, I was blown away, because I had, you know, again, the wheel, the same type of thing, in a similar type of experience.
Yeah,
it's just crazy. You know?
So let me talk a little bit about the new book, Transition Over. Okay. I mean, there's lots of personal stuff, intimate things that I just don't reveal publicly.
Sure.
Okay? But I knew that whatever I wanted to get across were things that were given to me. These were like gifts, insights. Okay. So I knew from before we put that book out, Beyond UFOs, that the ultimate project was not to talk about UFOs in and of itself, but to get data on UFO contact experiences. So then we can begin to see the wheel, a better understanding of the wheel.
Right.
Because there was zero data on the UFO contact experiences. So then for many, many years, I always envisioned this project. And let me sort of tell you how it came about. Okay. I had been given this this download, okay? And so I knew this information. So then when we began to get various academic professors in our organization, many of these individuals were individuals that were studying consciousness and contact for 30 to 40 years.
Sure.
For example, Dr. John Klimo became a tenured professor, a PhD from Brown University, a tenured professor mainly writing about consciousness and different aspects of the paranormal. Okay.
Okay.
And so I would ask many people like him that was part of our organization, and it'd be too many names. I won't give you the name. Okay. As a matter of fact, today I talked to one of them. One is a professor of religion, the chair of the religion department at Rice University.
Oh, wow.
Dr. Jeffrey Kreipel. Okay. So it'll be people like that I'd be asking. And I would tell them, I said, has anyone ever written an article, not even a book, but just an article discussing the relationship between consciousness and all of the paranormal as being one phenomenon? Okay. All of them would tell me, they said, look, Ray, many of us think the same way. Okay. We're going down that path. We certainly understand it. We accept it. We don't understand it, but no one has ever written such an article, let alone a book on that topic. Okay. So what I found out was that there's so many of these geniuses, people like Raymond Moody, all of the ND researchers. Okay. The people that had studied parapsychology. Okay. Only a few people in the UFO field. Okay. But certainly the researchers of the UFO experiencers knew about this. But Edgar Mitchell certainly knew about it, the late Apollo 14 astronaut and founder of the Institute for Noetic Sciences, Dr. Edgar Mitchell, Dr. Rudy Shields, the professor of astrophysics, Dr. Claude Swan, PhD in physics from MIT. Now, excuse me, he got his undergraduate from MIT, but he got his PhD at Princeton.
Okay.
Well, where Einstein taught, no slouch.
Exactly, right.
One of the major physics universities in the world, okay? And I could go on and on with all the Dr. Dean Radin, has published 3 academic books on consciousness. Jeffrey Mishloff got a PhD from Berkeley in parapsychology and studied consciousness. I mean, Dr. Bob Davis, a retired professor of neuroscience. I go on, Gary Schwartz, PhD professor from Harvard, a tenured professor at Harvard and Yale. And so you would talk to all of these people and they will all say the same thing. They clearly accepted, what I was saying. Okay. But yet no one has ever written an article because they were all in their little niches.
Right. Focused on their little areas there. Yeah.
The little areas. And so by then I said, to me, it was surprising because it was so obvious, like our discussion right now. Yeah. It's so obvious, right? These things. So I'm saying, I can't believe it. Like, for example, with the UFO contact experience, right? A statistical study, right? To me, it was like, of course, there must be a statistical study out there, comprehensive, because it's happening to tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people all over the world. Someone must have studied this statistically. Never been done. Same thing with this topic, an even bigger topic, okay? The paranormal, okay? Someone must have written about how it's all interrelated, right? No, And so then I said to myself, look, we need to be able to establish a new organization whose mission is to study the relationship between what is consciousness and the paranormal contact modalities, okay? Which are, as you know, they're not paranormal, they're actually very normal, okay? Right. And then we need to be able to do it through the experiencers, because this can't be just theoretical in nature, because it's the experiencer that has the key that can unlock that door, because they have actual examples of their experiences, like your experiences, my experience, whatever. someone would do an in-depth interview of your experiences, my goodness, what you could learn about the nature of our reality.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, but in order to undertake a comprehensive academic research study via statistical analyses and in-depth interviews, that's going to take a while to do. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, this is a difficult concept to begin with, for people to be able to understand. So what we first needed to do was to break it out. Okay, the theoretical aspects of it, and then the experiencer aspect of the contact modalities.
Okay.
So what I then embarked, this was like 4 years ago, and I've been working on this book now for quite a long time, is we needed to lay out a theoretical book that explains the whole theory of consciousness and the contact modalities.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And when we talk about the contact modalities, for example, UFOs, we have to explain it via consciousness, okay, and different perspectives, because there's not one perspective, there's different,
that's correct,
perspectives of this. So same thing with near-death experiences, with out-of-body experiences, with hallucinogenic journeys,
Mm-hmm.
The spirit world and communicating with deceased people, spirits, whatever, So we needed to have various academic articles on different subsets of the contact modalities. And that's what we did. We literally had a who's who of these medical doctors and PhD academics that wrote chapters for this new book. And let me give you audience members the title of the new book. The new book is A Greater Reality, the New Paradigm of Non-Local Consciousness and the Contact Modalities.
And I'm going to put an image of the of the book up in this spot so everyone can see.
Yeah. It's I eliminated the word the paranormal because I was forced to put that word in there, because if not, no one would know what the hell we're talking about. So it's a greater reality, the new paradigm of non-local consciousness, the paranormal, and the greater reality. Okay.
Now I've had experiences, Ray, where they've overlapped, where I've had a Pleiadian aspect come forward at the same time with deceased loved ones, speaking to my mother before she had passed. When she was sick, I was over at her house and this happened. I've had multiple overlaps with these kind of energies, with these kind of experiences. So it's not a mutually exclusive thing.
No, definitely it's not.
When it's aware in our field, in our awareness, this all melds together and we could have these aspects come forward and experience them at the same time. And there's always, like you said earlier, orchestrated. There's purpose behind these interactions and the way they occur. And there's always a purpose behind it. And I always learn that down the road. May not understand it at the time it happens, but it comes through at some point. You get that aha moment.
These experiences, Mark, as you very well know, are extremely complicated experiences. And materialist science cannot explain these things.
No.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And so, but what we're trying to do, at least with our organization, is to be able to document it, just like what we did with the UFO research study, to begin to document it so we have a better understanding of it. Okay. So this new book is not going to be our actual research study. It's going to be the first 2 volumes are going to be theoretical in nature.
Okay.
As I said earlier, giving a theoretical foundation to the phenomena. Mm-hmm. Okay. And again, these are, some of these articles are hypotheses, they're speculative, whatever, but at least it's to introduce these concepts which are rarely understood. Now, the last 2 volumes, volumes 3 and 4, are articles written by individuals like yourself and myself, major contact experiencers. Mm-hmm. Now, these are not individuals that have just seen only one UFO, or people that have had only one near-death experience, or have had 2 or 3 out-of-body experiences. No, these are people that have seen UFOs. They have also had out-of-body experiences. They have also had a near-death experiences, and they have also seen deceased people, know. And our book is going to start off with a pediatrician, a medical doctor. Her name is Dr. Melinda Greer. She's had all of the above, including Sasquatch experiences.
Oh, wow.
She's had 12.
Haven't had that yet, but
12 UFO experiences, 2 NDEs. Her last NDE supports the hypothesis that we're living in a virtual reality. It's like unbelievable, her experiences.
Yeah.
And so, how do you begin to try to understand the experiences of
and there's
Dr. William McGreal.
interaction with the physical world too with these, with some of my experiences, how they've interacted with the physical world and things have taken place and happened that can't be explained.
Yeah.
And people see the results of this, and on one of my videos on my channel, I just put this out when my mom died, about the whole experience around her death and how there was a UFO over her house. I didn't know she had passed. She was living alone, and I was driving over to her house. There was a craft over her house. And I mean, it's just what happened that night. What unfolded after that was just absolutely incredible. What had happened, from the way that I found her, the way she was positioned, how I connected with her that evening, just completely.
Yeah, these are mind-blowing experiences, and they're all interconnected. Yes. Another story related to the UFO and the contact modalities. I've had friends that would tell me that they were taking ayahuasca. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, these UFOs would appear above them. Everyone in the group saw it that were taking ayahuasca. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't like it was just one person, that had these experiences. Right. The whole group saw a UFO low above them.
Well, it's activating within these individuals. This is bringing this forward.
And it's just like you're doing human-initiated contact experiences where you're calling down a UAP, okay? It's like, once you're in these altered states of consciousness, all of a sudden the portals are opened up.
Right.
The binary codes that I have behind me, they're all opened up, and you're literally bringing down these binary codes.
It's just merging with you. And, when we expand our consciousness and bring that energy down, this is, quantum physics shows us how we can observe and create our reality and change our reality by observing and things like that. Things get activated within us and consciousness gets enhanced, and it impresses upon the fabric of the universe, and matter appears, and
you're raising topics here that humanity knows almost nothing about. I mean, the experiencer knows these things through experience. Okay. Right. But in order to put all the pieces together, I mean, we literally have billions of little pieces, like the little zeros and ones, the binary codes all around me.
How about like gravity? I've gotten information on that too. It's
like gravity doesn't exist, right?
All this stuff. Yeah. I mean, it's a creation of consciousness.
There's only two. Exactly. There's only two fundamental forces.
Yeah.
Not four, as modern physics begins to understand it. So, again, you talk to the major experiencers that have had physics downloads, like I have had, like you have had.
I've had that, yep.
They know these things, And so...
it's all consciousness.
Again, each of these little topics that we're discussing are just one of these little numbers. It's like, it's just the zero or this one.
In an infinite number of numbers, right?
Yes, of topics and complexities.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do with the CCRI is to begin to have a basic understanding of this... the world's biggest jigsaw puzzle, okay? Yeah. So at least we can begin to understand even what questions to possibly ask for the future. So what we're talking about right now, Mark, from my perspective, is that very few people really can understand, our discussion, okay?
Right.
The relationship about consciousness and the contact modalities, unless you're a full-blown major experiencer. If you like the people that we're going to have in our book, okay? Yeah. The experiencers, okay, and some of the researchers, because they've studied this through other experiencers. And but what we need to do now is to lay the foundation, the theoretical foundation, to establish a new paradigm, a new way of viewing our reality. And when we both die, that's when people are going to begin to to embrace this thing, to begin to understand it. But right now, it's like we're way ahead of the game.
Well, the work that we're doing is bringing it's really creating the opportunity and the space to bring this information down so that we can understand it and fit it into some sort of a framework.
Correct.
And as consciousness expands here on the planet, more of that's going to be able to be brought down and be understood. So it's like blazing the path and creating something. It's creative energy. This is it's a baby.
As you were referring to earlier, you and I were using the term orchestrated events. I also used the term divine intervention.
Divine, yes.
And I always pose this question out to the audience members. Again, the 1970s was a period before the internet, okay? In order to circulate information internationally, it had to be through a book,
Yeah.
through a pamphlet,
Some sort of publication.
that you read, a publication, you know, and it's very difficult to circulate, you know, publications internationally in all languages. Okay. So what I tell audience members is that 3 out of the 4 major contact modalities, okay, to me, the 4 major contact modalities are NOUS, nous, which means knowledge or the mind in Greek. Okay. So N is near-death experiences. O is for UFOs. Okay. U is for, O is for out-of-body experiences.
Okay.
U is for UFOs, and S is for spirits and ghosts. Okay. To me, those are the 4 major contact modalities. Now, what I want to tell you, audience members, is that 3 out of those 4, okay, began to be widely circulated internationally around the world within 5 years of each other. And let me explain that. Okay. With aliens, ETs, visitors from other planets, visitors from other dimensions, things of that sort, right? When did that really take hold internationally in a global scale? I would argue that took place in 1970 with Star Trek. Okay. Okay. Because that was, Star Trek was launched as a pilot, I think 69. And 70, it wasn't really, you know, that big of a deal. And it wasn't like 2 or 3 years later, like 73 or something like that, that it really took hold, you know, throughout the world. The TV series were now syndicated. They were translated into multiple languages. But between
so you're talking worldwide,
worldwide now,
spreading around the planet,
Now, near-death experiences. When did that really get exploded worldwide? Well, I would argue that it was 1975 with the publication of Raymond Moody's book, Life After Life. Okay. That was a New York Times bestseller. It was translated to almost every language, major language known to humanity, okay, all over the world. The other topic, out-of-body experiences. When did that really take hold internationally? That was with the publication, as you talked about earlier, Robert Monroe's books.
The Hemisync.
Yeah. So his 2 books were published, if I recall correctly, in the early 70s. I don't have the exact dates, but the early 70s. So again, within 5 years of each other, you had 3 of the 5 major contact modalities that were known all around the world. They were translated into multiple languages, worldwide circulation. Okay. Now you get to the point where I cut my hair, maybe it was about a month ago. Okay. The barbershop had 3 barbers. I was the only client that was there, right? Okay. So I told the guy who was cutting my hair, well, have you heard about this whole UFO disclosure stuff? That the federal government shortly is going to be coming out with a report, you know, about what they know about UFOs, that sort of thing. All of a sudden, all 3 of them, you know, woke up and they started talking about UFOs nonstop, right? So I told them, I said, I hope you guys understand that this is beyond UFOs. I used the title of our book, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then I explained
not to be steered down the narrative, down the path, right?
Correct.
Of the physicality and the materialism.
Physicality, correct. Right. Then I started talking about that. And all of a sudden the guy's cutting my hair and says, I've had out-of-body experiences. And he starts talking about some of those details. I've also seen orbs. You know, I've seen 2 big gigantic orbs right in my bed. One was elliptical, and another one was like a basketball. You know? Okay. And then the other guy, the other barber, who was like sweeping the floors, he goes, that ain't nothing. I grew up in a poltergeist house. You know, I've seen deceased people all the time.
Because you created a safe space for them to bring this forward, right?
And then the other guy was just, you know, quiet, you know, because he didn't have any experiences. Yeah. But here you were, 2 out of the 3 barbers were telling me all of the paranormal experiences.
That's far more common, yeah.
And another interesting point was that all of them knew what was the topic of UFOs. All of them knew what was a near-death experience. All of them knew what was an out-of-body experience, okay? So if you would have asked, you know, individuals back in 1970, do you know what a near-death experience was? Nobody would know. Do you know what an out-of-body experience is? No. You know what UFOs are? You know, aliens? Nobody would know. Okay, very few people. Okay, but now everybody knows what these terms mean. So my question to your audience members is as follows, okay? Was that a coincidence?
Right.
Okay.
All orchestrated. But we have our
Or
work cut out for
orchestrated.
us. We have our work cut out for us because everybody's got these different, they're all segmented, like you
Yeah.
say, right? And we've got it. I feel like it's our purpose, our role to bring this all together, to
Yeah.
bring it all together and kind of bring it in and show it as all consciousness.
Well, if you put the cover of our book, okay, that clearly the new book,
The new book. Okay.
the new book, and you can
The science of consciousness on this one, though. But yeah,
correct. But the new book actually has the contact modalities on the front, and it has NOUS and a whole bunch of other quote unquote paranormal themes being sucked into a black hole.
Oh, there you go. Okay, into a singularity
it's
there.
the same concept,
Mm-hmm.
And inside the black hole, that's where space-time breaks down.
That's right. And when I work with my coaching clients, what I do with them is I'll because they've got these different segmented views on things, and when we're doing healing work, it's about bringing it all into the heart space, into that portal to the higher frequencies. And I call it a singularity.
Well, that's the illustration that we got in our book.
So it's very interesting.
It's all being crunched in.
That's right.
To become one.
That's correct. Yes.
And also, I have the front cover on the very top, sort of like an angelic format. Mm-hmm. Leonardo da Vinci's drawing of man. I forgot the formal name that is used. Where he has like two sets of arms and two sets of legs coming out, and we have it sort of like in a brilliant light going up to this light, to ascending up. Okay. And that was also on the front cover. So everything there's a special meaning towards it.
Sure.
Like ascension, and again. What we're doing via our book is hopefully we're establishing a new paradigm, of the integration between consciousness and the contact modalities, that it's all one phenomenon.
Definitely.
Studied as one, and it's all consciousness based, which in turn is multidimensional in nature. And so
I'm so grateful to be a part of that and to be doing this work and understanding that aspect of it. And kind of bringing
Mark, I never asked you to write a chapter for a book. There's still time.
What do you need? Send me an email.
There's still time.
Yeah.
Like I said before, volumes 3 and 4 are chapters that are written by experiencers.
Okay.
And they're writing about their experiences, and almost all of them people that have had, like you, different types of experiences via the diverse contact modalities. And so I'll send you a couple of examples.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to have just a brief conversation, you and I, about or I'm going to send you that video of that one experience I had, and maybe if you want to listen to it.
For example, I'll send you that medical doctor, and she takes you from when she was little. Mm-hmm. She was having all these astral travel experiences, but all of them had a teaching, mission to each one, and throughout her whole childhood. And this woman has had everything in the kitchen sink thrown at her, and she's a pediatrician, so she takes you from her childhood all the way until the very end, and how she questions these things, how she's evolved, And so it's a chapter discussing your experiences, basically.
When we think nonlinear and we realize that things have happened throughout our lives and they come together in a point, even though they're scattered throughout our lives on a timeline, the meaning sometimes just kind of meshes all at the same time. It just pulls it all together. And that's the multidimensional aspect of all this. When she's going back, and you're going to find meanings and experiences that have happened years and years ago.
And there's people that are still trying to find meanings.
And it will come, and it's going to come. Yeah. It's going to click in at some point, and they're going to say, "Wow, that's what that meant." That's what that was about. That was the lesson. An activation happens, whatever it may be. It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no. It's the way I see it is we've been blessed.
Absolutely.
Because imagine Rey Hernandez before March 4th, 2012. Was materialist, a rationalist, an atheist. To me is when I died, my bones be buried somewhere, and that's it.
And that's the end of it. Yeah.
And that's the end of it. And I was not spiritual at all. I wasn't even religious, Yeah. And now my whole worldview is totally flips upside down, I'm a totally different person. I'm still struggling.
Yeah.
You know, like we talked about earlier in terms of learning how to love, you know.
That's the thing. Yes.
Learning how to be a kind and spiritual human being. These are just things that humans have almost an impossible task.
That's a concept that it feels like it's just slightly out of grasp. And we're looking at human 3D-ish physical ways of accomplishing that. And it's a higher concept. Yeah. And we're going to grow into that. That's what all this is about. It's to really ground that energy and become that. And we're going to get there. We're going to get there. And we're going to lead the way.
Well, it's at least if you could present these experiences that this is what humans need to be. Okay. We need to move in that.
I could absolutely contribute something on that level. Yeah. Because I'm all about embodying this. I'm becoming this multidimensionalness. That's what I strive to teach. That's my purpose, I feel.
Well, I mean, look at the monks.
To how do we do this? Yeah.
Yeah. Look at the Buddhist monks, the people that live in Hindu temples, you know, the Taoist mystics, you know, even Catholic mystics that stay in these monasteries for 20 or 30 years, you know.
And it's interesting. Yeah.
All they do is they just invert to themselves, you know.
We're in an energy, though. We're in an environment right now, and a type of energy that is so conducive to being able to do this that I could walk around and have experiences and just turn it on and communicate without having to go into those, you know, for years and years. You know what I mean? It's just a conducive energy right now with what's happening. And it's just an incredible time to be here to do this.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's but again, you've been blessed because there's not everybody that has that ability.
As you as well, yeah. And
no, I really don't. It was a certain period of time that I had that. Like for example, when you would meet people, you automatically knew whether someone is a major experiencer or not.
Yeah.
You didn't know if it was an out-of-body experiences, whether they've seen UFOs, that they've seen deceased people, but all of a sudden you met them. It's like, you knew it, you know?
You just felt it, yeah.
You felt it. That lasted for about 1.5 years, you know? But there was a period where it was like 100%.
Yeah.
You know? Like, don't fuck with me. I knew you've had these experiences before. I know it, you know? And
but so, a lot of that though, we just have to turn the way we look at that, because you've integrated a lot of that actually, and it's within you.
Oh yeah.
We don't see it differently. You don't lose that. It's just a different way of accessing it.
What it is that in order for me, the work that I'm doing, you know,
you get busy doing this.
Yeah, being able to do the full-time job that I'm doing, you know, dealing with attorneys with LLMs, you know,
sure.
And plus they were the CPAs as well, and there's 3 or 4 of them, you know. When you
very distractive analytical work,
and then you're doing the work that I'm doing, you know. It's if I was just tuning in to all this extra information that is out there, I wouldn't survive, you know.
Yeah. And I would love for you to just be able to take a little bit of time and to do that and reconnect with that, because that's alive within you.
Yeah. When I retire,
you're just so busy,
I'll be able to do that. When I retire,
you're just so busy.
You have no idea. For example, this book that we're doing is 4 volumes.
Yeah.
Each of them is going to be like 700 pages each. Okay. We still have to finish doing the editing. I have to do all the formatting. I haven't even started my chapter.
And I can't imagine that. I can't even begin to imagine how, you know, it's amazing that you're able to get through that and get that done.
This is the most, and I just moved into this house. I have all my books still packed, you know? So how am I going to write the most important chapter of my life when all my books are packed? I haven't even had time for it. I've had a couple of surgeries, and then my boss is doing a workload review next week. You know, I mean, you get where I'm getting at.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely.
And yet I'm trying to do this mission, you know. Yeah. So imagine if I still had all those paranormal experiences going on. No way.
Yeah, but they gave you what you needed at the time to put you on your path.
Oh yeah, no. Even how they gave me spirituality. Yeah, it was an orchestrated event.
It sent you in the direction you needed to go in,
involving a series of NDE related experiences. I mean, these are real physical experiences, you know. And then after the last one, it's like I knew that I was an eternal spiritual being. I mean, I didn't care about NDEs anymore because mission accomplished.
Well, they were all orchestrated by you. It's all you. It's all right. We're all connected. So
Now I understand. Now I understand. But when it was taking place, it was quite traumatic, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. I know exactly how you feel. So, but I really appreciate this. I know you're very, very busy. And we've been on almost an hour and a half. So.
Wow, surprising. Well, I just want to repeat one more time for your audience members. If you want to get on our mailing list, if you want to receive more than 450 pages of information from both the first book and a description about our second book, peer-reviewed academic articles, et cetera, send me an email to info@experiencor.org. That's info@experiencer.org. Okay.
Thank you so very much, Ray. And we will definitely talk soon. I'm greatly appreciative of this. Okay.
Very much.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.